welcome back to Tarik Talk. Let's get into today's episode. Future Fair returns to New York City from May 13th through May 16th, 2026, once again taking over Chelsea Industrial during one of the busiest and most internationally connected weeks in the contemporary art world. Now, compared to some of the larger global mega fairs happening during Frieze Week, Future Fair occupies a very different position within the art world ecosystem. And honestly, that difference is exactly what has made the fair so important over the last several years. Future Fair was founded with a very specific mission to create a more equitable, transparent, and sustainable art fair model for younger galleries and emerging artists. That mission feels especially relevant right now. The contemporary art world can often be incredibly expensive and difficult for smaller galleries to navigate. Booth costs continue rising, shipping costs increase. International travel becomes more competitive, and many younger galleries struggle to survive within a system dominated by massive global dealers. Future Fair emerged as a response to those realities. Founded during the pandemic era by art dealers Rachel Mijares Fick and Rebecca Laliberte, the fair was built around the idea that emerging galleries deserved better access, fairer pricing structures, and stronger community support. Futurefairs.com. And since launching, the fair has quickly become one of the most respected emerging art fairs in New York. For the 2026 edition, Future Fair features approximately 70 galleries and artist-run spaces from around the world, with a strong emphasis on first-time exhibitors, younger programs, and underrepresented voices. Futurefairs.com. And unlike many traditional fairs, where booth placement and pricing heavily favor larger galleries, Future Fair has continued using alternative financial models intended to support smaller exhibitors more fairly. That includes initiatives like reduced booth costs, collaborative programming, and profit-sharing structures designed to make participation more accessible. Artnews.com. And honestly, those structural conversations are becoming increasingly important across the art world. Because the future of contemporary art doesn't only depend on major galleries and collectors. It also depends on whether smaller galleries and emerging artists can actually survive long-term. Future Fair directly addresses that issue. This year's edition includes galleries from New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Mexico City, London, Berlin, Seoul, Toronto, Sao Paulo, and several other international cities. Futurefairs.com. And what's exciting about the fair is the diversity of practices being presented. Painting, sculpture, photography, installation, textile work, digital media, performance, conceptual projects, ceramics, and interdisciplinary practices all coexist throughout the fair. There's a visible openness to experimentation, and because many exhibitors are younger galleries, visitors often encounter artists who are at major turning points in their careers. That sense of discovery really defines the atmosphere of Future Fair. People attend specifically to find artists they may not yet know. Collectors often describe the fair as one of the best places during New York Art Week to discover emerging talent before artists become heavily established within the market. And over the past few editions, several artists first introduced through Future Fair have gone on to gain significant institutional attention, residency opportunities, and international gallery representation. Another major highlight this year is the expansion of the fair's partnerships and mentorship initiatives. Future Fair continues collaborating with arts nonprofits, collector groups, curators, and residency organizations to create educational programming and professional support systems for participating galleries. Futurefairs.com. That infrastructure matters, because for many emerging galleries, visibility alone is not enough. They also need access to networks, mentorship, press opportunities, and institutional relationships that can help sustain long-term growth. And Future Fair seems very aware of that reality. One of the most talked about aspects of the fair this year is the continued development of the Future Fair Prize and curatorial fellowship initiatives. Futurefairs.com. These programs support artists and galleries through acquisition opportunities, curator engagement, and public recognition throughout the week. And that emphasis on direct support rather than simply exposure feels especially meaningful. Exposure alone doesn't sustain artists, infrastructure does. And Future Fair repeatedly positions itself around building that infrastructure. The location itself also contributes heavily to the fair's identity. Chelsea Industrial has become one of the defining venues of New York Art Week, hosting several fairs and creative events throughout the year. The raw industrial architecture, open layouts, concrete floors, and downtown atmosphere create an environment that feels connected to New York's long history of artist studios and warehouse exhibitions. It feels energetic, young, experimental. And compared to more polished convention center style fairs, Future Fair often feels more grounded in artist culture itself. Another exciting aspect of Future Fair 2026 is the expansion of pop-up programming and off-site collaborations happening throughout Chelsea during the week. culturedmag.com. Several participating galleries are organizing temporary exhibitions, rooftop installations, after-parties, and collaborative performances throughout Manhattan. And because Future Fair overlaps with Frieze Week, NADA, Independent, and several other fairs simultaneously, New York itself becomes completely transformed during these few days in May. Collectors move continuously between fairs. Artists attend openings across multiple neighborhoods. Curators schedule nonstop studio visits. Fashion brands host dinners and activations. Museums coordinate major exhibitions around the same time. The entire city becomes one interconnected cultural ecosystem. And within that ecosystem, Future Fair has carved out a very specific identity. It feels younger, more community-driven, more collaborative, and importantly, it feels hopeful. That optimism matters because the contemporary art world can often feel extremely exclusive and financially overwhelming, especially for younger artists and galleries trying to establish themselves. Future Fair offers an alternative model. And while yes, sales absolutely happen at the fair, the atmosphere still feels centered around dialogue, experimentation, and long-term growth rather than purely luxury branding. Another major focus this year is the fair's ongoing commitment to inclusivity and representation. Many participating galleries specifically focus on artists from historically underrepresented communities, including women artists, queer artists, artists of color, immigrant artists, and multidisciplinary practitioners working outside traditional market expectations. Artforum.com. That emphasis reflects larger shifts happening throughout the art world right now. Collectors are increasingly interested in broader perspectives and narratives. Institutions are reevaluating historical exclusions, and younger audiences are demanding more diverse representation within contemporary culture. Future Fair appears very conscious of those conversations. Another exciting element of this year's edition is the increase in interdisciplinary and technology-based work throughout the fair. Several exhibitors are presenting immersive installations, soundworks, moving image projects, AI-influenced media, and experimental digital practices. Artreview.com. But unlike some fairs that lean heavily into spectacle, Future Fair still maintains a strong focus on artistic experimentation and conceptual depth. Technology becomes part of the artistic language rather than simply a trend. And honestly, that balance helps the fair feel authentic. One thing that really stands out about Future Fair is the visible presence of artists themselves. At many major fairs, artists can sometimes feel disconnected from the commercial environment surrounding the work. At Future Fair, artists are often inside the booths, speaking directly with audiences, collectors, and curators throughout the week. That creates a very different energy. Visitors engage with practices more personally. Conversations become longer and more meaningful. There's less distance between the artwork and the people creating it, and because of that, the fair often feels incredibly alive. You feel possibility inside the space. You see younger galleries taking risks. You see experimental installations. You see artists testing new ideas. You see curators discovering emerging practices in real time. That sense of momentum defines the fair. And honestly, fairs like Future Fair play an important role in shaping what the future of the contemporary art world might actually look like. Not only aesthetically, but structurally. Questions around sustainability, accessibility, equity, collaboration, and artist support are becoming increasingly urgent, and Future Fair actively places those conversations at the center of its identity. That's part of what makes the fair so influential despite its relatively young history. It's not only presenting art, it's also proposing alternative ways of building the art world itself. Future Fair 2026 runs from May 13th through May 16th at Chelsea Industrial in New York City during one of the busiest weeks of the International Art Calendar, futurefairs.com. And for anyone interested in discovering emerging artists, supporting younger galleries, and experiencing one of the most forward-thinking and community-driven fairs in New York, Future Fair continues to be one of the most exciting destinations of the season.